Hello, everyone. Today we're going to talk for just a couple of minutes about Google Classroom. A lot of schools have started using Google Classroom during the pandemic and continue to use Google Classroom as we continue on from the pandemic. So just a couple of tips and ideas today as we talk about organizing your Google Classroom. So I'm just going to go ahead and open up the sample one I have here. So first of all, when I was teaching during the pandemic, I used Google Classroom as my go-to spot for my students to be able to find all of the information that we needed for school each day. That included the Google Meet link, it included any assignments, any videos maybe that I made for them at home and wanted to share with them, because I did quite a lot of the videos so they could watch on their own time. Everything funneled through Google Classroom. But what I realized as soon as the pandemic was over, I wanted to continue using my classroom and putting all of those resources into my Google Classroom so that when students were absent, maybe when students missed part of the class period, when students couldn't find a paper I passed out or didn't remember what we talked about in class that day, they could refer back to my Google Classroom. What I found is it cut down on a lot of questions, asking for extra copies, asking what did that paper look like again? All of those questions kind of were answered by me saying, go check Google Classroom. So a couple tricks that I learned along the way I'd like to share with you today. I have just my, sample professional development folder here. And the first thing we need to talk about are these places up at the top. The stream versus classwork are the two I'm really going to talk about today. I like to have things neat and organized. So my stream was only for important announcements. So as you can see here, I'm asking them to sign into their PBS Learning Media account, and I'm giving them instructions in the link how to do that, because that was the source of a lot of my information. So I had them sign in with that account. So signing into certain things could be very important here. The other thing that I used my stream for was kind of daily check-in. So occasionally, whether it be daily or sometimes it was not daily, but I would use this to post information that was not directly related to the academic component of my classroom. That was during pandemic time. After pandemic, when we weren't in online learning anymore, I still kind of liked being able to provide them with different resources. So because I taught science, this page quite often became the spot where I would post cool science in the news. I didn't do this daily because I still didn't want it to be cluttered up. But if something big happened in the science world, especially connected to what we were learning, I posted it here. It wasn't directly related to our content material, but it was definitely something I wanted the students to notice. And because I didn't post in the stream every day or all the time, multiple times a day, the students actually did pay attention when I did post in the stream. So think about what you want in your stream and how you want it to look. Another setting you might want to be aware of is when you go to settings and you are setting up your classroom and the invite codes. I also, in my stream here, you can see the stream, only teachers can post or comment in the stream. I did not want this to become the place where students interacted with each other or carried on a side conversation. We used the chat for that in Google Meet when we were meeting online, but I only wanted to be able to post in the stream. Then classwork on the stream, I hid my notifications, so every time I created an assignment, it did not go into the stream. I felt like it just made the stream cluttered, and then they didn't pay attention to the other things that I was posting in the stream. So think about those things when you're kind of setting up your stream here. And I really encourage you, however you decide to do your stream and however you decide to do your classwork, be consistent. Think about it at the beginning of the year, or maybe at the beginning of a quarter or the beginning of a semester, and stay consistent with what you do. That way the students know exactly where to find certain information and teach them that at the beginning or when you make a change in your Google Classroom. Then, when you go to Classwork, here's a couple other spots that I would like to talk about. So there's a couple different things that you could do to organize your Classwork page. The first thing that you'll notice on mine is I have this class information section up at the top. I always kept this at the top because if they were looking for the syllabus for the class, or we had an electronic textbook, so if they were looking for the link to the textbook, those were always at the top and they didn't have to scroll through all of the information to find it. The other option, if you don't like having that at the top and you'd really prefer to have, that week's lesson or that topic at the top, you could put it at the bottom, because notice off to the left-hand side, they can automatically go to these sections. So if you'd really prefer to have this at the bottom, if you click this and go ahead and drag it, you could drag it down to the bottom of your page here. You still have your class information there, but you have your current week up at the top. If they wanted to go to the class information, they could click off on the left-hand side here and it'll bring them right to their class information. So as long as you're consistent about where you put it and tell the students what to look for, they'll know that that information is there for them all the time. Now, let's talk about topics just a little bit. In organizing your Google Classroom, there's a couple different ways that you could organize the topics. My topics in my class were always organized by date. So whether I was teaching online or whether I moved back into the classroom, I organized mine by date. That way the current date was always up on the top. And so whatever week we were in, the students could go to that week. If they missed a day of class, or if they just wanted to review or find some of the information that we talked about or work on an assignment, it was all right at the top of their classwork page. If they say, let's say they looked at their whatever grading system you used and realized, oh, during September to 13 to 17, I missed an assignment that week, they could go to December 13 and 17 and see what they might have missed that week easily as well. So you could go to the current week, you could go to an older week as well. So a couple other more considerations to think about when you are making your page. First of all, I know Google Classroom has these little icons off to the side, that's whether it's a question or whether it's an assignment or whether it's material, but really they all are the same color and they don't really stick out. I felt like they kind of got lost in the whole page itself, whatever theme you chose, like I have blue here. So what I used was clip art. So here you can see I did a clip art by a theme. I put a little snowflake here because the assignment is it a snow day? And it was a science assignment on talking about lake effect snow since we lived in Ohio. Otherwise, you could use other clip art. You'll notice on that class information page, I used a clipboard for here. For the syllabus, I had a little document, and for the textbook link, I had a computer for our electronic textbook. Personally, what I used in my classroom was I used a color-coded system. So I've seen this idea other places too. It's not original, but it really worked for me because the students got used to this process. Monday was red, then orange, yellow, green, blue. They all knew the colors of the rainbow, and so I felt like it was easy for them to follow. I used these dots here up in the front, and that way they knew exactly what day of the week we were talking about. Sometimes there was maybe 2 things on a day, sometimes there was 1, depending on what extension I used. But they always knew if that color was, if yellow was included on there, they always knew we did that in class on Wednesday. So it was very, very clearly laid out to them. You could also use, depending on what clip art you use, you could use books if you'd prefer to use books. That works as well. All of the clip art that I use on here, I just got an extension. So if you look up here on my bar, on my extensions bar up here, I use this Joy Pixels. It has lots and lots of different emojis to use. You can change the skin color on them. You could search for a certain emoji here, and as soon as you click on an emoji, it copies it down below, and you can copy it into your assignment or into your topic up here. But there's lots of different options out there for emojis. A second way, if you don't like using dates on your classwork page, a second way to organize your topics is actually by the unit or the topic of study that you're currently covering. So if you're covering a unit, let's say on the United States, maybe that's your topic of study. If you're an elementary teacher or if you have kids for multiple subjects, you could go by the subject matter. So maybe an elementary teacher might choose to have one section on math, one section on reading, one section on science, and that's how they organize their topics. However you choose to do it, I highly encourage you to find some system that you like at the beginning of the school year, be consistent with it, teach it to your students right at the beginning of the school year, tell them what all of your emojis or what all of your codes mean. If you want to, for example, maybe if you're collecting an assignment on a certain day or a certain assignment that you're going to collect, you need to put a big check mark by that to draw their attention to it. However, you need to add emojis or text or colors to help those students visually see what's coming up and what you expect of them. All of these can add interest to your Google Classroom, and they can also add organization to your Google Classroom to help you and to help your students become most successful. I hope you found some of these ideas helpful, and have a great day. Thanks.